And, thank you. It's wonderful to be here. What a segue into what I'm going to talk about. But I first of all want to start with thanking Leslie Hewitt and her development of this Women of Wellness. This is so needed, and it is coming at such a time on our planet where we are making so many changes to become whole and conscious. And fascinatingly enough, women are the ones that are doing it, because women are the ones that are supporting each other. We're moving away from a paradigm of competition to one of grace and support, and it's starting with women. So it's so exciting to be here. And serendipitous, when you really begin to start to tap into this new energy that we're all in the flow of, that's why we're here, that's why we were drawn here. I actually contacted Leslie at the last minute about this conference, and someone had canceled as a speaker, so I was able to come here. And then just how my topic flows, it's just amazing. This is the universe working. So thank you for your presentation on neurotransmitters, and those of you that don't have a science background have a little understanding of what they are and the havoc that medications can cause. My perspective is I am an integrative psychiatrist. So I have spent most of my years learning and training in the Western world. I've ran inpatient units from geriatrics. I work at the prisons as well, San Quentin on inpatient units. But all along I've always done a healing practice on the side. I do energetic work, hands-on healing, as well as mixing traditional medications and primarily now helping people to synthesize all of this, helping people get off medications, perhaps not have to put them on medications, or a combination with a very greatly reduced dose. So, how does this all begin? I think when we begin to start looking at what are the causative factors of psychiatric illnesses, I think with the Western world and how alternative medicine is coming forward into the world, there are people that are saying, okay, we have high blood pressure, we're putting a Band-Aid on our high blood pressure by taking a medication, when really there's some imbalance somewhere in our bodies. But we never really think about it with the mental disorders, because it's something that is still very much shunned in our world today. Today, 2012, if you have depression, if you have been diagnosed with bipolar disorder, if you have been diagnosed with ADD, if you have schizophrenia, we don't even want to talk to you, you're weak. And this has nothing to do with how we're beginning to learn how to treat the root cause of issues and not put a Band-Aid on things. So I'm here to tell you that the new paradigm for mental health is there is a root cause and root causes for the manifestations of these. And I don't even want to call them diseases or disorders. I like to call them imbalances. Because basically, I believe, coming from an energetic perspective, and what I love about Leslie's work is that she talks about how we are energetic beings and how we have our energy system, our chakra system, which is off our body, but it's inside of our body. For example, our liver has a physical liver, there's a mental liver, there's an emotional liver, and there's a spiritual liver. So everything is interconnected. So what we put in our bodies, in our physical bodies, interacts with the energetic portions of ourselves. So I look at a lot of these disorders, and I treat symptoms. I do not label people. Sometimes if you have to for reimbursement purposes, I'll say this diagnosis or that diagnosis, but I just look at symptoms and I look at where the imbalances are. And I work with a particular supplement company out of Canada, and as well as targeted amino acid therapies to get people off of medications. I have, over the years, seen toxicities in people giving them medications. So the basic new paradigm and new premise is that once we get to the point where we have differences and abnormalities in the serotonin, the norepinephrine, the dopamine system, it's already into our physical bodies. We're already one step ahead. We're manifesting imbalances. There's a lot of research now by Bruce Ames, who is a PhD that works in Oakland out of, I think it's called the Children's Center. And he's done a lot of work on micronutrient deficiencies in our nervous systems, in our brains. So if you've ever taken a biochemistry course, we have this huge pathway that is just impossible to read. But many of us will have deficiencies in how the enzymes break down and do not function properly. It could be, we could have a genetic push for that, but we all have this. And so then what happens is if we are not properly nutrated and balanced within our physical bodies, that will then wreak havoc and deplete our hormonal system, our neurotransmitter system with the serotonin, the dopamine, etc. And then we end up with depression, manic depression, schizophrenia, whatever you want to call it, it's an imbalance in the brain. And so when we give medications, what we're doing is we're doing like with people with high blood pressure. We're giving them a Band-Aid to put on. And so we're replacing the serotonin, the dopamine, the norepinephrine, just with man-made toxic substances with side effects. And what that does is it does not allow the body to naturally heal and make its own serotonin. That's a whole separate, different pathway that gets shut off. So as a psychiatrist for many years, people would say, I'm feeling better, my depression's gone, I don't feel like I want to commit suicide now, but I feel closed off. I can't access my emotions, let alone all the other side effects that can ruin lives. Anxiety, and inner restlessness, insomnia, nausea, sexual side effects. But they get better, so as a psychiatrist you think, okay, I've done my job. Once I started getting away from using medications, energetically I would look at people. I had initially a lot of menopausal, perimenopausal women coming into my practice. And, they're depressed and anxious and all these, and I'm giving them Prozac and I'm doing hands-on healing with them and the healing is working, but I'm thinking intuitively, I'm looking at their energy field, their hormones are off and something else is off. So then I started to learn how to do bioidentical hormones. So oftentimes you don't even need an antidepressant or something to help you sleep once you balance out estrogen and progesterone in women and men. Needing hormonal replacement. So then I learned about specific products. And these are a vitamin mineral supplement, but what is different about this particular product? Because I have worked with all sorts of vitamin companies, ones that are really, really good, that are you can only get through physicians. These have a micronization process, meaning the powder that it's micronized down to takes a 4-day process rather than a 4-hour process. So when you're taking these supplements, and it's a broad spectrum supplement, it's a powerhouse and it goes straight into your cells. Unlike if you take even a good quality supplement, you may be getting 75 of it. This is 100% going into your cells. So whatever is deficient in this huge biochemical pathway that you have, that's really the true core cause of all of these imbalances, begins to get treated and begins to get healed. The myelin sheaths start to heal. Everything starts to heal, and it becomes a detoxification in your body. And it actually begins to pull out in a cellular wall of all the medications someone has been on. So once you start taking these supplements, the micronutrients, which are B vitamins, C, everything is balanced to what your body needs, along with targeted amino acid therapies, because that is the building blocks of life, the building blocks of making serotonin, dopamine. We need those as well. What happens is when someone's on medication, for example, they may be on 10 milligrams of, for example, Prozac. What begins to happen is in their body, it'll be pulling it out of their cell walls, and they will be on technically 50 or 60 milligrams in their body, even though they're taking a 10 milligram tablet, and begin to experience side effects that they may not have experienced when they were just on it and not being optimally nutritionally fed. So then what we do as psychiatrists, or there's few of us that are doing this now, it's again a new paradigm, I have to start cutting down on their dosing. And that's how we wean them off. A lot of people want to come off their medications, but very hard to come off any of these psychiatric medications once you're on them without something for it to be replaced by. And like I said, when I first started working with this particular supplement, it's the micronization process, and it's also, they have some sort of patent on the carrier molecules that take it into the cell, so it is a powerhouse. I had a patient that was in college, and he had just been released from an inpatient psychiatric unit and needed follow-up and needed a psychiatrist. So I said, okay. And he came, and he had a serious suicide attempt. He cut his wrist, needed stitches, severe anxiety disorder, was on 4 or 5 different medications, very high doses, 2 antipsychotics, Depakote, lithium, and 2 different antidepressants at high doses. And he didn't want to be on the medications. And I thought, okay, yeah, I know you're supposed to start with a simple test case, but here we go. I went in at the deep end. So I started him on the supplements. And essentially what you have to take, you have to end up getting up to about 15 of the micronutrient supplement and at least 9 of the amino acids. And that's a lot for people, like 5 tablets, 5 tablets, and 5 tablets, and then 3, 3, and 3 of the amino acids. But if you're willing to do this, I have seen miracles with this. And, I'm going along with this, and I'm thinking, I'm not sure this supplement's any different than any other good quality out there. Within a couple weeks, this kid was on 800 milligrams of Seroquel, which is a very potent antipsychotic that causes sedation. Within a week or 2, I got a phone call from his mother saying he's not showing up for classes. And I'm thinking, oh no, what's going on, And so then he said, it's not that I don't want to go, I'm starting to feel better, I'm just so sedated. And I'm thinking, okay, he's up to 15 on, well, it's the Empower Plus is what it's called. I'm thinking, okay, he must have like 1,600 milligrams worth of Seroquel in his body. So within 1 week, I had to titrate him down to 25 milligrams. That's unheard of in traditional terms, to go from 800 to 25 in 1 week. And then even when I got him down to 25, he was still zonked. He could not get up in the morning. He was sleeping all day. Previous to taking the supplements, he was walking around going to school and functioning on 800 milligrams plus 4 other medications. And at a certain point in the treatment phase, he could not tolerate 25 or even 12 and a half. So I had to stop it. And then I eventually got him off all the medications. And he got back to school. I had to write a note for the teacher because he missed a lot of classes just trying to do the taper and the transition. And, but they were able to work with him. He was able to finish his work, went from failing to getting A's and B's, and finished the semester and remains doing well. So, I mean, it's just phenomenal what I've seen. If I did not see this with my own eyes, I would not believe this. So, you know, when you think about what the other fascinating thing that I love about this is, you know, first of all, those of us, even if you have a serious psychiatric disorder that you've been diagnosed with, manic depression or bipolar, this works fantastic for. How this came about was one of the co-founders, his wife had bipolar, manic depression, committed suicide. His 2 children were both bipolar, in and out of hospitals, and he said, God, please, please help me find a way to help my kids. I don't want them to commit suicide like my wife. And he had a friend that was a chemist that had this pig farm with these unruly pigs, and in order to calm them down, he gave them just these natural vitamins and supplements that he made in his lab. And the pigs calmed down. So Tony Stefan, one of the founders, said, can I have some of that? I just want to try and give a little bit to my child because, you know, they're all over the place and I can't calm them down and they're having side effects on the medications. Their one daughter calmed down. And so he said, this is a God-given miracle. So they reformulated the product for human consumption. And started using it on his children. His daughter has written a book, talks all over Canada and the States about this. We've had 2 major conferences with psychiatrists from out of Harvard and in Colorado. She is married with 4 children, never had a relapse, and is doing fantastic, and so is the son. So, and I've seen just phenomenal results with my patients, particularly if you haven't been on medications. Very easy. So there's no reason why someone should really needs to be on medication. Sometimes you need to. So I've had some people where it's very difficult to get them off. If someone's been on a particular medication, because what this does, it actually chelates the medication out of the cell wall. So if they've been on a medication, for example, like Haldol, where you get these dystonic reactions, you know, they'll get them maybe 5 years down the line, even though they haven't taken Haldol in 10 years, because as you continue to take the supplements, it pulls it out of the cell wall. So you just need to balance out. I need to maybe back off a little bit on the amount of dosing until the medication comes out. So there's ways that I work with it. The other fascinating part that I've seen, which is really the reason why we're all here and why I want to get this message out to the world so you can help each other and just let each other know that there are viable alternatives. And we're not even wanting to call this a supplement. We wanted to call it a micronutrient medication because of how powerful it is. Once people are off medications, energetically, they are able to access within themselves their emotions again. They are able to access higher levels of consciousness and begin to heal, like we are all doing our process on this planet, for the planet, and for the evolution of mankind right now. We're all here. Everyone has an emotional process that we're doing. The people that are on medications, when I look at their energy field, there's these black, heavy, it's gunk. And you can try and chelate it out energetically, but if they still keep taking the medications, it's in their field. And they can't access their emotions to process out perhaps a trauma that they may have had in childhood that's still bothering them, or they're still walking through life with it. So people begin, once they are able to begin to reconnect with our God-given birthright, because we are now wholly balanced. And we're not shunned because we have a mental illness, or weak because we have a depression. We have an imbalance. I don't care if you have ADHD, schizophrenia, anxiety, insomnia, bipolar disorder. It's an imbalance somewhere, or imbalances of a neurotransmitter, of a micronutrient deficiency that then goes into the neurotransmitter system. So what I love is just being able to take this back and really getting to the core issue. Get to the core issue of what the aberration is in the physical body. And then I, working energetically, will take it energetically and see what even brought that in. Why did they even come into this life wanting to take on this journey and this challenge? You know, what energetically? Is it something from a past life? Is it what have you that brought that in, that allowed that aberration in their DNA to activate? Or let's start changing the DNA, which is what we can start doing now. The possibilities are endless once we are able to begin to access our full consciousness and we are fully whole. What's fascinating is people that have been on medications for years and years and years, when they are finally off of the medications, they need to be referred and need to have deep therapy with, whether they go to a psychiatrist or whether they go to their therapist, because there's these emotions that are coming up that they've never experienced before in their life. And they need help and support in how to process this. For those of us, perhaps, that have not been on medications, we have our certain ways of how we maneuver through our process work. These people, it's suddenly new. They're having to deal with emotions that have been tempered down in their systems where they have not been able to access. And they don't even know how to understand or even begin to work through, I'm just having a bad day. You know, and then there's the whole level of working with someone of, no, this is just a bad day, versus we're processing through an issue, or you're getting depressed again. And learning, for them to sort of learn their inner cues within themselves. And you know, when one person in a family changes on that level and begins to access their higher levels of consciousness, that goes out just energetically to everyone around them, their families. Everything begins to change. The karmic contracts of, I'm going to be the caretaker, you're going to be the sick person. Contract's done. And the whole family has to then learn how to work with each other in a way of wholeness. And again, if I can say anything of why I'm so excited about these products, is it allows those of us that have these imbalances, that manifest in these disorders of, such as depression, bipolar disorder, schizophrenia, it allows those people to access their God-given rights on this planet. So it's very exciting. So just be aware, know that there are options other than medications.